Happy Easter, ladies and gentlemen, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. As always, we've got a hell of a lot to get into. We're going to kick things off with what Christine Lagarde had to say over the past 24 hours. The financial surveillance digital state is upon us, and actually Christine Lagarde very much confirmed this in the form of CBDCs coming this October. So we're going to start the video off there. Also, stablecoins within the US and more broadly, they effectively are just CBDCs. They're surveillanceable, freezable money, essentially trackable, traceable, data extractable money. And this is a reality. I think it's important to cover this stuff because this is a reality that we're moving towards. We are moving towards a cashless society. We are moving towards a kind of one world global system. And CBDCs and crypto-enabled fiat systems are a major part in that. And it's very interesting. You know, I started my crypto journey off with the Bitcoin rhetoric and being effectively a Bitcoin maxi and believer in its vessel to freedom, or a more freer world where actually we could use a monetary system that was external from the central banking one that we currently use today. And actually that dream was very much hijacked. Roger Ver wrote an amazing book on it. Bitcoin has just found itself as a store of value, and actually the very technology that we perhaps thought was going to save us in some way, shape or form is being used to do the opposite. Very interesting. So we're going to start the video off there. Then we're going to look at some comments from Donald Trump. We walk a fine line on this channel because even though I've said I was certainly more of a fan of Trump than I was his opposition, and I think that what he's trying to do with America could result in real good and real change. It's not black and white. It's not good or bad. There is a middle ground with a lot of this. And actually, in regards to the tariffs, what we've said is there's two paths ahead. One is literal implementation and escalation. And the other one is a resolve and a deal. And actually, this could result in lower tariffs across the board. And in that sense, we were kind of behind it. And we still are to a degree. But the markets haven't liked that. They've priced in the literal implementation. Anything away from that, which we think is more likely, we'll see the markets recover. But we do have news over the past sort of 24 hours that he's talking about the fact that China will make a deal with the United States, and I think they will. They'll have no other choice. Going to 245% tariffs, you might as well make it 1,000. These are joke numbers considering the US imports, I think it's $500 billion, so $500 billion from China. So add 45% on that, you're talking 1.67 trillion. More than that, in fact. That your costs would have gone up to. That's not going to practically work, is it? And I think people have got what's happening with tariffs wrong in the sense that they think they're going to be literally implemented. I don't believe that's going to be the case. So he's talking about making a deal with China. Of course, Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, was over there, and she is here to make a deal. Then we're going to talk about some Ripple news. They've confirmed they're not going to be IPOing in 2025. We're going to listen to why, and then we'll look at the markets. As always, we've got a lot to get into. Let's dive into Christine Lagarde and what she had to say on your digital surveillance financial state that is upon us. Let's dive into this.
I have a cutoff date, which is October. So October 2025, my governing council has to decide whether we move forward or not. So that's an important date. My strong hope is that by then, the European Parliament has passed the legislation that will support the technological work, the policy work, the unified rule book that we are working on so that we can launch. We have a cutoff date, which is October. So October 2025, my governing council has to decide whether we move forward or not.
Oofed. There we go. This year, we have looked at a previous clip of her essentially stating the same thing. Stablecoins, CBDCs are the evolution of money, but with that comes far more financial surveillance. And then I think when you cross into the realms of maybe like social credit scores and things like this, that social medias are going to enable. We're already seeing that in Britain. People are getting locked up left, right and centre for what they're saying on social media. And free speech is an interesting topic because there's no such thing as halfway crooks when it comes to free speech. And to use that Mobb Deep analogy, you're either for free speech or you're not. There's not really a middle ground. In my opinion. So interesting things come in. It's important that we cover this sort of stuff because crypto is ultimately the backbone of it. It's one reason we're so bullish, I guess, on the cryptocurrency space is because we know what's coming from a kind of evolution of money point of view. And with that, with every technological innovation, the internet has done amazing things. It's also done some not great things. PCs, mobile technologies, there's always downside to, and this is just one for the cryptocurrency space. Let's move on. The markets are still in absolute angst in relation to the tariffs. And just looking at things logically from where I'm sat, and I've put this opinion out there, and being unpopular until it goes in our favour. If it goes in our favour, it might not. The opposite might occur. And then that's a literal implementation and escalation. I think a resolve and a negotiation is simply more likely. And the market's priced in the worst. We saw on the 90-day pause, the market's put in a 13% candle on the S&P. So that tells you that markets are going, oh, we better actually reprice the situation now. Now we've got a bit of clarity. And if there's any more of that, they'll continue to add on and engulf what we've just seen. I think the crypto space is in an amazing place. Certainly we'll talk about that. But yesterday, Trump was asked a question about China. I want to play it, and then we're going to play what Maloney also had to say, and then we're going to move on to Ripple, and then talk about the broader markets.
You said you have you have said in the past that you aren't worried about allies growing closer to China as a result of your tariffs. And this week we saw Chinese President Xi Jinping visit with 3 of our allies. Should you be worried that they're growing closer?
No.
Will you pick up the phone?
Nobody can compete with us. Nobody.
You said that you have a good relationship with President Xi. Why not pick up the phone and call him and make a deal?
Oh, we're going to make a deal. We'll have a deal. I think we're going to make a very good deal with China.
Do you plan to reach out to him and call him?
I think that you will see we'll make a very good deal with China.
Prime Minister, you have said that the president's tariffs are wrong. Do you still believe that the United States is a reliable? They always try to help.
It could only be her.
Should the European Union still believe that the United States is a reliable trade partner?
Well, I'm here exactly to work for make the West stronger. For I believe in the West unity, and I think simply we have to talk
She
and
believes
find
in the
ourselves.
president. She believes in the president.
Also, and find ourselves in the best middle way to grow together. That's why I'm here. So, if I wouldn't think it's a reliable partner, I wouldn't be here.
We have a very good relationship together, and as countries, we have a very good relationship.
To follow up, Mr. President, what if there is not a trade deal with the EU by the time of the end of your 90-day pause on reciprocal
Oh, there'll be a
tariffs?
trade deal, 100%. Oh, well, you think there won't be? Of course there'll be a trade deal, very much. They want to make one very, very much, and we're going to make a trade deal. I fully expect it, but it'll be a fair deal.
Are they on your priority list?
Everybody's on my priority list.
So despite Trump perhaps being a polarizing character and very much like what we would say, Marmite, people either like Marmite in the UK, they don't, or Vegemite in, Australia, and whatever the equivalent is in the US. Despite that, it's important to pay attention to what he's saying as the individual behind the uncertainty right now as it relates to the markets on tariffs and trying to work out that situation. And I think that gives some clarity. The 90-day pause for me really signaled a willingness to negotiate, a willingness to perhaps be a little bit more lenient, and that's a great step in the right direction. And I think you're going to. I think what you're going to end up is with deals across the board, potentially barring China, but I even think that's going to end in a deal because, like I say, US imports $500 billion from China, 245% on that. You're talking 1.7 trillion. 500 billion to 1.7 trillion. They don't need added costs, and that's not what this is about. And that will affect consumers. So let's maybe dive into the S&P before we dive into what Brad Garlinghouse had to say yesterday. Really, for me to get comfortable, I want to see an entire retracement of this recent downside. And I think that's going to come on the back end of the story that we're looking at. And I ultimately think that it's more likely that this retraces. I mean, you had a similar thing that took place here. This was Trump's tariffs. And then there was a rally that ensued. And I think we're looking for the same thing to play out once again. But we need to see that. We're still... There's no clarification, really, I think, on the situation other than clues that negotiations potentially are more likely. What I want to do now, guys, is talk about Ripple IPOing. So I believe Ripple will IPO, but Brad Garlinghouse kind of squashed the notion of this year. And let's look at why he said this. Very interesting. We see Circle IPOing. I think rightfully so. Now is a perfect time. And then we'll finish things off with a bit of crypto price action.
the reality, most companies that go public do that to raise capital. We haven't needed to raise capital, and so that has not been a driving force. We have talked a little bit about would we go public, and it's like, well, the U.S. market until recently has been very hostile, and like, why would we even try to have that conversation? I mean, I guess the exact answer to the question, will we IPO in 2025? I think that's a definitive no.
Okay.
We're in 2025, and it certainly takes a little bit of time to get there. But I also think you have to ask yourself, okay, how does Ripple benefit from being a public company? And therefore, is it a high priority for us? So what we've said is there's no imminent plans to go public. I will acknowledge that a change in the SEC in the United States, as he said earlier, as conditions change, you never say never, and you reevaluate.
So that's interesting. I do believe Ripple will go public. I just don't think there's a need for them to do so. It is a very well put together company that's doing something monumental. I think it's going to be a unicorn company in the future, actually, guys. Let's talk about the cryptocurrency space. Again, the market's just in angst based on everything that we've just sort of looked at and spoke about. And it's why we played those clips of Trump, really to sort of show a willingness to negotiate, and that the scenario the markets are pricing in, which is literal implementation and escalation, probably is less likely, and the markets maybe haven't got that right, and there might be a repricing that comes on the back end of it. You've also got to factor in where consumer sentiment is. It's all-time lows, retail sentiment. Lower than lockdowns, lower than 2008, lower than 2000. Is that warranted? I don't think so. And I think personally, when it comes to the cryptocurrency space, you guys know I'm bullish. Certainly technically from a kind of macro time frame, a weekly time frame, I'm very bullish. And also on the smaller time frames. We've looked at this. We're going to do more videos on it, don't worry. I think this is a falling wedge that you've broken out of, and I'm seeing this across the board on the altcoin sector. So do not fear, guys. ALLIncrypto is here. I'm wishing you all a wonderful Easter, a fantastic Friday if you don't celebrate Easter, and a wonderful weekend. But we'll be back tomorrow with another jam-packed daily market update. Let me know what you thought about everything we covered in this video. Like and a comment is always appreciated. Do check out the Patreon, and I'll see you all in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic Friday.